So, good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Linda West, and I'm the Programme Coordinator for the Academic Support Team based at the University of the Sunshine Coast in Australia. Today, we have one of our team members, Dr. Bree Wilson, who is actually a research fellow at the Centre for Crop Health and Research at the University of Southern Queensland. But she is also a key member of the academic support team, and she will be leading you through this research proposal training today. So welcome, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we all meet across the globe today, and hope you all really get a lot out of this research proposal training in preparation for your application. Please keep your microphones muted unless you're asking a question. And also, if you would like to ask a question, you're very welcome to put that into the chat function in the meeting too. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll now hand over to Dr. Bree Wilson.
Thanks, Dr. Linda. Just a quick reminder, can everyone please mute their microphones? I'm muting a few people. I'm going to turn my camera off so I don't have to see my face in the corner. I will just have a small caveat that I'm on holiday and we're in the I'm in the ski field, so I'm sitting in the car. So this is not normally how we would present a seminar, but thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to kill my camera now. I also wanted to say, if you want to stop me after I finish a sentence to ask a question, please do that. I'm really happy to be interrupted. One thing to keep in mind, and it's probably a good thing to know, that Australians are quite casual for the most part. I certainly am. I'm happy to be interrupted and to answer any questions where possible. So let's get this rolling. The first couple of slides are university specific information. If you want to inquire to USP, please contact Joseph Arter on the email below. So you can ask him about eligibility or any queries you have, unless you can also email Linda, of course. If you are keen on a project that is based at FNU, then please email Dr. Archibald Baker. And again, you can talk about eligibility, potential project ideas, any other question you have. So these emails will be in the presentation. So if you don't write them down now, you can find them later. So what will we cover today? Briefly, we'll talk about communicating with potential supervisors. So I will have a bit of a focus on communicating with Australian supervisors. Your first port of call should be the university, either in Fiji or Samoa. I want to go through populating your research intent form for the coming round. I want to remind you to ensure enough time to review and incorporate feedback for your proposal. And I'll be presenting some common mistakes in proposal writing and how to avoid them. And those slides have been put together by our colleague, Dr. Danny Medina. So thanks to Danny, I'll present on her behalf today. So this, I believe, and Linda can correct me if I'm wrong, is what the research intent form looks like. So it will either have the FNU logo or the USP logo. And essentially it's a fillable form where we need to talk about basics, your name, title, the supervisor, ACIAR, co-supervisor. Essentially you can work through the form and there is likely a tick box to make sure that you've included everything. Okay, so into the guts of it. So the research background is about 300 words max. You don't have to fill that entire 300 words. Less is more. So please describe the issue you want to address or the research topic. The aim, so please outline the aim and objectives of the research project. What are your research questions? What are you going to answer with your projects? We need to provide a short lit review. So what are the key concepts or methods, models, perspectives, theories related to your project? Often, then you might pull more specific methods into how you will undertake this study, and it might be referring to the literature. And this is probably the most important thing and probably the most tricky is the research outcome. So describe any new knowledge or benefit you anticipate as a result of the study. So clearly in all these areas, and we'll go into more detail in a second, you do need to do some background research. Cool. So this is sort of one of the most important slides. So if you haven't already spoken with a potential supervisor at FNU or USP and an ACIAR supervisor, then please stop filling out that form and arrange a meeting with them first. Now, I do take it for granted just emailing or calling someone because I've been doing this for a long time, so it's quite easy, but it can be quite daunting, and that we do appreciate that. But think about it as your first step into becoming a independent researcher, a scientist. So do ensure you send your research intent to the assigned supervisors with enough time for them to edit. Do let your supervisors know it's coming so they can set aside time. Do remember that these supervisors are busy people, and do allow a minimum of 1 week, either 2 weeks, to edit. Okay, so how do you communicate with an Australian supervisor? Find out their gender, and if you don't know, ask us. So I guess I've had this experience lately with some of the presentations I've organized where the person just hasn't done the background research. So I don't mind being called madam, but I certainly don't like being called sir. If you can't find out, then address that potential supervisor using their full name in an email. So dear Dr. Bree Wilson, for instance. All the above is fine, but do make an effort to know the person that you intend to contact. And please email us if you don't know. So how do you communicate with the potential Australian supervisor after you found one? So introduce yourself and tell them that you're interested in being involved in their project as a student. Do highlight a few things in the project so they know you've done a bit of background research. So that signifies to me, they've done some reading, they're keen, I'll keep reading their work. Highlight one thing about their research that is of interest to you. Sorry about the typo there on the screen, not sure what happened there, but essentially you might look at some other papers of theirs and say, look, I'm keen to be involved because I know you've had experience in this, and this is where I want to do my PhD or master's. Add a sentence explaining why you're interested in the topic. I'm keen to be involved because my family are farmers and food loss is a really important issue for us. Or I've been growing sweet potato for years and I'm really interested in gaining more practical skills of the viruses that infect the crop. And if you can, do add a sentence of where you can add value. So you might have a particular skill set or particular contact group with a village that you know that you have an advantage over someone else. Because you have to remember that one supervisor for one project might have 5 or 6 applications. So you need to stand out from the rest. And it can be tricky. It can be tricky to sell yourself. So that's just about the communication side, which I think is the most important first step in any way. So the research proposal, what is it for? So it should explain the nature and extent of your planned research. So this includes explain the feasibility and logical foundations of your project, having a well-focused research question or a set of research objectives, and maybe even a hypothesis. I would strongly encourage the hypothesis. It's often forgotten. and detailing the academic literature on your topic. In your research proposal, you need to demonstrate that you have an understanding of the current research and issues of your topic. So look at some recent work, the last 5 to 10 years, and do pay attention to historical work where necessary. And you also need to be able to provide justification of your project through the literature. So the literature review should tell a story about what's been done, what's known, and then you need to highlight the gaps in the research and where your work will fit in. So that means you're sort of selling yourself in your research area to make it relevant, as you are likely aware that master's and PhD research, it needs to offer a novel contribution to the field. In the methods section, I think there's more detail in a second, but you need to be able to match the methodology and your research questions effectively. Like, can you really achieve your objectives with what you are proposing to do? And are your proposed methods up to date with current research? So breaking it down in a little more detail. So I'm being a little bit repetitive, but I think that is useful in sort of cementing the ideas. So the research topic addresses a significant problem and advances a state of knowledge in that field. So you need to ask yourself, what am I interested in finding out about this topic? So this allows you to set the scene with specific background information, highlights the research gaps briefly. You don't want to go on and on. States what you're going to do, states what you might find, and it shows the importance of your topic to the field of research. Ensure you clearly justify why your research topic is important. So has the work been done before? Has it been done in another Pacific island country, but not Fiji or not Samoa? Has the issue or topic or problem changed now the research needs to be updated, like a climate change issue? And you also might want to anticipate possible limitations of your research, and that shows like a strong sort of forward thinking and proactive approach to research. So you can address possible limitations or issues for your own benefit as well as to improve the entire proposal. The research aim. So this needs to be the first thing, and there can be multiple aims. So aims are the main goal or overarching purpose, what your study is going to answer. And think about aims as long-term outcomes. Why is this research needed? What is this research about? How are you going to do it? Objectives specify how your study will go about answering the aim. So objectives of short term, aims long term, objectives short term. Use a numbered list and make them SMART. So SMART means in having a SMART goal, it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So every time you write an objective, make sure that you write it in the way that encompasses each letter in that acronym. And these can essentially act as milestones to help you achieve your research. And that's often, it's a crucial component of research projects, including your potential master's or PhD research. So research questions are based on the research problem or your topic and your objectives. So they're feasible ways or directions to address your topic. And the best way to write your research question is to make it, again, a numbered list or dot points, and to make it a SMART research question. You can go back, you can print out that image, and just to make sure you're always on track with objectives and research questions. So the dreaded literature review. It is the hardest part, and where the team, the PASS team, and I in my own supervision work have sorry, that sentence didn't start very well. What we have noticed is that, or what you often notice in a student that's just starting out or who has had a break and then starting out, is that often the literature review is written as a list of different studies and a summary. And it's really not this at all. It's meant to be a critique and a synthesis of what's been out there, what's been done before, and a comparison of results. So it should highlight that there are gaps in the field that you're working in, and these gaps need to be filled. So you always sort of stage the literature review to, you might have, for instance, sweet potato viruses have been well described in Australia and US. More recently, they've been described in Fiji, but not a lot is known in Samoa, mostly because the crop isn't grown in any high yielding capacity. So just sort of take your time, and like you might have a working document with your literature review that has lots of little ideas from the paper, and then you pull together something more logical. Now, I must stress that ChatGTP and other AI programs are not to be a part of this research proposal or any future work that you do. We can see when artificial intelligence has been used, and really, look, there's just not much point getting something else to write your work, especially when there's lots of errors in what such AI do. So it's more likely to generate a list for you, but it can also generate false references, which can, to the expert in the field, can be seen from a mile away. So please don't even think about using AI for this. You might have several areas to tie together. In my PhD, I had 3 components, a crop pathogen and a biocontrol agent, and by themselves, each of these topics are huge, and you do need to distill that information carefully. So remember back to that 300-word limit. Take your time to link these areas and to tell the story of your research. So you might not get it right the first time, but should the supervisors choose to work with you for your proposal, then they can also help you work those areas together to make it a succinct or a nice story. So the literature review should be the process of developing themes or a series of themes from your broad reading. Like, do avoid quotations. It just shows that you haven't spent the time to put things into your own words. So avoid beginning paragraphs with Jones argues or Smith states, and you end up losing sort of you as the writer and your authority of the work. Instead, provide an overview of the paragraph in a topic sentence written in your own voice. And this takes, like, writing is an art, so please don't expect to get it right the first time. So the methods and the research design, look, it's easy when you know what you're doing. And if you don't know yet, then look at different papers. The literature can inform you how to do things. You don't have to add so much detail in your proposal that you get lost or can only talk about one area. Read other proposals and theses, perhaps by contacting the various folks at USP or FNU. You can have a look at someone else's proposal that has got through. Ask your supervisor or a colleague or a lecturer at uni. So you need to have enough detail that the panel examining your proposal is confident that you know what you're doing, and that really, for instance, going back to artificial intelligence and using it to define your methods, it will really show a big hole in your work. Perhaps you don't have the skills for that particular method, and that's fine. But you need to know where you might go to get help. So perhaps you might say, look, I know the Ministry of Agriculture can help me with this molecular analysis, so I will communicate with them to have a training session. And do include a statistics component. And this is often a downfall of many proposals, ignoring it, pretending it doesn't exist. So the research outcomes. I think this is quite a nice area and probably easy to address. And it might be something that you even start off with. So who or what will benefit from the research or the information or the knowledge generated from the proposed project? Is it a smallholder farmer or a commercial farmer ready to export to New Zealand? Is it an industry? Is it a new method that an industry can better produce pearls in X village? Is it a gender specific and positive outcome for women and children? Or is it a knowledge gap for a new method where you generate new technical information to help researchers do a better job? Maybe it's a diagnostic for a particular disease that's come over from Fiji to Samoa. So looks like I've flown through that that part of the presentation. I'll just I'll turn my camera back on and we'll stop for questions now, and then before getting into the next part of the presentation.
Thank you, Bree. Does anybody have a question at this stage? Please don't be shy. We're here to help.
There's a question. Just if you want to just state your question, or I can, if it's a direct message to me, I don't want to put you on the spot. Just email me text me the question, or just read it out and be brave.
Hi, Dr. Bree.
Hi.
I'm Evangeline. I'm from Fiji, and intending to apply for a PhD scholarship. I had a question in regards to the methodology. So if there is a project that I'm supposedly wanting to work on, and as you mentioned that we could highlight if so-and-so ministry in a government department could assist us with a particular analysis. So for example, if I have to say work with the Ministry of Agriculture here in Fiji, I'm confused if I can actually state that without having prior communication with the ministry themselves, because I'm thinking if I do go ahead and state that in this particular prelim stage, and I don't get their help later on, like
Okay. We have I think it's fair to say that our project and both universities have quite good relationships with many your various Ministry of Agricultures across those countries. So I think it's okay to put it in there.
All right.
We also have work placement opportunities with the Ministry of Agriculture. So we've only seen sharing of resources, and more than happy for those scientists to help out. So put it in.
All right. Thank you so much. That makes sense.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Salanieta is asking if people can have a copy of the presentation, and I'm sure, Bree, you would be happy for me to share the PowerPoint with everyone. And we are also recording the session.
Look, there is a word limit to each subheading. Perhaps you came in late. That is quite specific on the presentation, on the form, sorry, and the presentation.
Sorry.
Hi, Semi.
Sorry. What's about the literature review? How many how many literature there are limited number for that, or maybe like 6 or 10 pages to
Oh,
put in there?
I think 6 to 10 would be ample. I think 5 would be probably better, given that 300 words. And really, I should have thought, put it in the presentation. Do quote peer-reviewed literature, so high-quality journals, and that is giving a lot more vigor to the research. So avoid internet websites rather. You can have one, but not 4.
Thank you.
And I believe that, sorry, I don't believe that your reference list is counted in words.
No.
So don't be, if you want to put in 10 references, don't be afraid that that's going to add to your word limit. Is there one more in the chat?
Have a look.
Okay, that's all good.
Does anybody else have a question at this stage?
Cool. Well, we might
Okay, thank you, Bree.
push on to Dr. Danny's more colourful and maybe exciting presentation. I'm just going to try and get rid of myself. So, common proposal writing mistakes and how to avoid them. Now, like Danny has his gorgeous Costa Rican accent, and I simply don't, so it's not going to sound as nice, but I'll try and do it justice. So thank you, Danny. So mistake number 1, the superhero. So your research is the new revolutionary idea that is going to solve world hunger, end poverty, and make you rich. And you're going to do it all with one simple experiment. So obviously we're taking the mickey a little bit here, but these are things that we have seen that are seen globally with such from a large proposal to something quite small like a PhD proposal. So how do you avoid the superhero? Make sure that there is an alignment between your justification, aim, research questions, and your methods. So describe your methods and work backwards and ask yourself, quite simply, what am I trying to achieve? Is what I'm trying to achieve feasible with the methods I have in mind? And there's nothing wrong with having I'm going to say fancier, more technical method in there if it's possible to get the training. Like I know that some students are able to come to Australia for a certain time. So there's no point saying that you're going to test using a fancy technique with some chemicals that simply will never come into the country. Just be aware of what is feasible. The bad salesperson, anything less than the best can be had at discount. So not being able to effectively sell the idea that your research presents a contribution to the body of knowledge or highlight the social, economical, environmental benefits of your work. So trying to sell half-baked ideas, flashy or trendy topics or flashy keywords and concepts that don't have a lot of meaning. So don't go over the top. Avoid flowery language. How about I just go to Danny's slide? You can avoid how to avoid tips. So work on your theory of change and determine contribution and attribution. I think this is more social science talk, so it's not something that I that I'm good at articulating myself. Frame your research in terms of real life issues. Make sure core concepts are explained and integrated into your work. And ask yourself, has my research, is it similar or is it different to what's been published already? And there's nothing wrong with it being similar. Your difference might be the fact that you're looking at a particular seaweed production in a different island on Fiji. So I guess there's benefits of having work that's been done before, of course, so you can add to that body of knowledge. Mistake number 3, the squirrel. Your brain was out there doing fun squirrel things while you were writing, and now your work is sloppy, missing words, or you've forgotten to explain a few things. So the advice to avoid the squirrel: get a friend, or even better, an enemy, to read your work before submitting it. Write, let the work ferment for a few days, and then look at it again with fresh eyes. Like, I find this really helpful. And often when you get stuck on a sentence or a paragraph, you can come back and you can see the path forward. And do ask yourself, how can I present the ideas in a way that is clear and well articulated? So perhaps you have a friend who is also submitting a research proposal. So, like, why don't you swap? Hopefully you're applying in a different area. Or even, as I mentioned before, perhaps you have a lecturer friend or someone who's working in the Ministry of Ag that might just be able to have a read and give you some feedback. The rule breaker. I think that should be mistake number 4. The application template says you have to describe the idea in 500 words or less, to attach a budget and include a list of references, but you are too cool for rules. Don't be the rule breaker. So use a checklist or tick the boxes if the application has a tick box on it. If you're not sure, ask in advance. And by advance, I don't mean the Friday before it's due on a Monday. Ask yourself, what do I need to prepare before to submit a complete application proposal? And often this is can be a major issue where there has been no communication with potential supervisors. And I can assure you, if you have not spoken to a supervisor and have people on board, you will not be considered for this. I sound very blunt, and it's coming from a place of love and care that you must be organized. Mistake number 5 will be the wanderer. Your research is about the use of X treatment on taro plants, and you start your proposal by taking the reader into this amazing journey about the beginning of time when taro was first used in the Pacific. How to avoid the wanderer? Create an argument for each paragraph, articulate in one sentence, and then support it. So have it in mind that you probably only have a few paragraphs worth to support, so you have to keep things quite succinct. Once you have familiarized yourself with the relevant literature and developed your research questions, leave the background or lit review until the end. Now, people work in different ways. We were having a conversation at work the other day about whether you write the paper first, then do the abstract, or do the abstract first and then write the paper. There's arguments for both ways. Just making the start is often the hardest thing. Do ask yourself, what information do I need to provide the reader for them to understand what I'm going to achieve with my research? So I'm just going to extrapolate a bit further. You need to be scientific enough that you're showing the panel, who are not experts in your area, about what you want to do. But you also have to be vague enough that people, because they're not experts in your area, to understand. So it's a fine balance between over-the-top scientific and actually useful information that a scientist in a different area might be able to give you some feedback on come time to submit the proposal. Mistake number 6, the parrot. You have fallen in love with this particular word or idea, so you repeat it like a parrot in your introduction, objectives, outcomes, and literature review. How do you avoid the parrot? Use the search function in Word or create a word cloud. So there's lots of online software where you can grab some text and then chuck it into the program. And essentially, the more you use a word, the larger that particular word is in this word cloud. Do you let the word ferment to avoid the squirrel, and you do it again to avoid the parrot? Ask yourself, if I remove this, will the text still make sense, and is a message coming across? And that's often useful, really highlights the usefulness of someone else reading the work. Whilst you do have particular word limits in each section, please don't pad the paragraph out just to get up to 299 words. Some people might find it quite hard to keep it shorter, but have a go. And are there any questions?
Thank you, Bree. That was fantastic, really clear what people have to do. Does anybody have any questions for Bree? Remember, you can put it in the chat if you want to.
Has anyone already contacted their university, a potential university supervisor and a potential Australian-based ACIAR project manager? And can you share anything with your that you want to share with your fellow enthusiasts here?
Sorry, Dr. Bree. Yeah, I already consult with my supervisor based in Fiji, Dr. Gada, and also the co-supervisor from Australia, Dr. Dorin. They both willing to support me on my research proposal. Now we are scheduled a time, as you mentioned in your presentation, like to improve my proposal. So we will discuss more further about my research proposal, and then if they have some review or some edit, we can do it before we do the final submissions. I think your presentation, Dr. Bree, is real useful, and I agree with the persons who requested your PPT as well to share with us. It's a little bit like a guidebook for us.
Yep.
It's better for us to read it and follow, make you improve your proposal. That's all.
Thank you for sharing. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Dr. Bree.
And I'm also, look, I'm not involved at all in the selection process, but please feel free to email me should you need to. I can see we have some supervisors online too, so I'd be very, very welcome if they would like to say anything. But I really can't stress enough that the most important thing is getting involved and communicating with those supervisors as your first protocol.
Yes, absolutely, Bree. I think to making that first contact, as Bree said, is often quite a daunting step to email a professor at a university, but they are really keen and have put forward these research topics and keen to have students associated with their ACIAR research projects. So they are expecting people to contact them. It's not going to be something out of the blue. So please do reach out and start that conversation as soon as possible. Often, and I know that people procrastinate and put things off, but please don't put this off. Make sure that you start this application as early as possible. I'm assuming that everyone in this forum has already checked that they're eligible to apply for the scholarship by the time we've gotten to this stage, and check that eligibility with the ACIAR graduate officers at either USP or FNU, and have, if not started that conversation, are just about to start the conversation with the supervisors. They're looking forward to hearing from you. We have a question in the chat from Salanieta again. Should we be working more with our co-supervisor or the supervisor concerning our research topic and proposal? So it's actually, it would be both. I think contact both supervisors at the same time. Those that are nominated on the spreadsheets that are available on both USP and FNU websites, contact both of them by email, or go and visit the principal supervisor at the university in Fiji or Samoa if you can, and then reach out and arrange perhaps a Zoom meeting to actually discuss it. They might ask you if you've checked your eligibility, and they should do that, and you should be able to reassure them that you have, or that you have an email from either Joseph-Atta or Dr. Bakari that you are eligible to apply, and then you can start the conversation from there. But do some reading beforehand. Don't just expect your supervisor or co-supervisor to write this proposal for you. You have to do the legwork. Isn't that right, Bree?
That's right. And I'm not a supervisor, and I will not be a supervisor in the next round that you're applying for, unless something changes. But now, for any student I have for any scholarship, I will need to read something that the student has written on their own accord before even engaging in further emails. My advice is, with the contacting supervisors, if there's 3, send them all an email and keep them all informed. And there's another question in the chat. Do you have supervisors in other areas as health education to confirm on related issues that is somehow aligned to the research? So I think you're asking, can you bring someone in if they have particular expertise? So the answer is probably yes, but not without full consultation with the principal supervisor at the university and the supervisor from Australia who is managing the project. Do supervisors like to read long or short emails? How about something in between? For those who weren't here at the start, do find out the gender. So you're calling me madam rather than sir. I've also, look, Linda, the presentation I gave today is different to what I sent you earlier, but there's a bit of advice about, dear Dr. Bree, I'm interested in the project on metarhizium to control fall armyworm. I've read some of your work. I'm really keen to further this research because we've seen the problem on our maize crop in Vanuatu. Would you consider me? So something short, like we're actually time poor, as you probably know, and maybe there's 8 coming in from Fiji, Samoa, etc. So show that you have enough background, but don't go over the top.
Yeah, it's very good advice.
Is your research topic, if your research topic is confirmed by the co-supervisor, should we start doing our research proposal? So co and principal supervisor confirmation, then yes.
Yes, absolutely. And also start gathering the other documents that are required to be submitted with the application. It's not just the research intent, but also you need letters of support from both the principal supervisor and the co-supervisor that they are happy to support you in the application going forward.
Yeah.
and various other transcripts and all sorts of things too.
Sorry, Linda. Just to make sure that we're on the same page. You mean about supporting letter from both the supervisor and the co-supervisor, they have to be endorsed together with our application.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Often a question in the past has been, I'm keen on this project, but I really want to explore this area. Can I manipulate the project slightly or the idea slightly? And the answer is yes, within reason. So do reach out to your supervisors for that. Often, as someone who's been involved in an ACIAR project, obviously as an Australian, there are specific milestones that need to be ticked off. So a project that better aligns with those milestones is easier to manage and allocate time to than something that's quite contrasting. So just keep that in mind. But to me, someone who said, look, I'm really keen on exploring this angle further, that shows excellent initiative and interest in the area. It must be almost time for me to get back onto the ski field.
Absolutely. Are there any further questions from anyone? No. So we will be running, depending on both USP and FNU, another Zoom question and answer session, just to catch any questions that people have going forward. And we will also have a session maybe the couple of weeks before the closing date for the application round on how to submit the application. We have particular guidelines that you have to follow and checklist of documents that have to be included. So we'll run another session on that too. As I said, this session is recorded and obviously Bree has put her email in the chat, which is great if anyone would like to reach out to Bree. That would be okay. Somebody is asking, when can we get a copy of the presentation? So Bree, you mentioned that it's a slightly different version.
Yep.
Okay, if you could share it with me and I'll send it out to everyone who registered.
I will. So I'm on holiday today, so
Great.
I'll fix up those few typos and send it out.
Thank you, Bree.
So I reckon early next week, team.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate everyone coming and joining us today. And thank you for joining us and have a wonderful day, everyone.
And I wish everyone luck. And
absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Linda. Bye.
Bye.